Hey guys, hope everyone's having a good day. I wanted to just give a few updates that I hadn't talked about yet. In the Nancy Guthrie case, nothing major has happened recently. However, some things I haven't talked about or posted yet, I decided to quickly do that now, mainly because it's things that a neighbor had reported had happened. And basically, it's just a weird situation, again, where Nanos is involved to some extent, and the confusion the man breeds confusion, I swear. So basically, on Brian Enton's show, he had a neighbor on who had talked about, for one, she saw a strange man prior to Nancy's abduction, and saw it through her bathroom window while she was getting ready. She said the man just did not look like, he just looked out of place in their neighborhood. And she did say she reported that to authorities. She's just now coming out publicly, though, and discussing it. And then what was even more interesting was that her friend, I believe it was her friend or possibly her sister, I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me, but she lives relatively close as well. And she said that two people showed up to her house and said they were FBI agents, but that the person had a weird feeling, and said that she had doubts that they were. Mainly because of how they were dressed. They weren't dressed professionally. There was a man and a woman. The man had a hoodie on with his hood up, and she showed credentials, but it doesn't appear as if he did. So she ends up calling and reporting this. The people had come by to ask if she had, for one, a pacemaker, which is odd. I still am not quite sure what that's about. I'm still looking into that right now, because I'm not really understanding how or why they would ask her, this woman, that specifically. So she reported it, and the sheriff told her that they looked into it and that they were not real FBI agents, which of course is very alarming. Then it ended up being, I don't know why I'm surprised by this, but it ended up being that they were real FBI agents, and that Sheriff Nanos was not aware that these FBI agents were going to this person's house. So again, I feel like, it's another instance of Nanos speaking incorrectly when if he doesn't know something, I think everyone at this point wishes that he would just stop talking if he doesn't know things for sure. And so that's that whole debacle. It really seems to have nothing to do with actually finding Nancy. It just is sort of like, that's why I didn't report it right away, because it's an interesting issue, something that occurred, and just, like I said, again, goes towards Nanos's incompetence. And, another thing, speaking of Nanos, the other thing is that there had been an article that just came out about discrepancies in Nanos's resume that was posted online, that some of the years did not match up, and the sheriff had to come out with a statement, or the sheriff's department, I'm sorry, came out with a statement stating that they acknowledged the discrepancies in the time that he spent in some of the roles that he did, or other sheriff's departments, that the years were incorrect, and that the amount of time was incorrect on some of them as well that he spent there. So the sheriff's department decided to blame it on clerical errors. And from what I saw, like 2 years is a pretty big clerical error to make, like twice, I believe it was. So obviously I feel like they're just, trying to blame it on somebody else as usual, but that I found interesting, because I wondered early on. I don't know if you guys had read this, but pretty early on in the investigation, I posted, I wrote a post about Sheriff Nanos's past, and I can try and link it here so it's easier to find if you guys want to check it out. But it just bothered, like, I don't know what it was initially that made me curious about, his past, because like I said, this was very early on. Early on, I actually thought he seemed like a very nice man that cared a lot, and wanted to find Nancy. But it just, I wanted to look into him just to see. And what I found was definitely not the person that I thought. So that is when I realized that all of this, he basically puts on an act. And I found out about his political ambitions and how, shady some of the stuff he does is, and retaliatory, and just not who he portrayed himself to be. While doing the research, I did look at his resume, and I had big doubts about the time he had spent at some of the places, and the experience basically that he had. I just, from his behavior and the moves he makes, like, it just didn't. I was very surprised at the amount of experience his resume says to have, and the amount of years. So I, found it interesting that somebody else finally kind of posted about that, and wrote a long article basically pointing this out and calling the sheriff out. So, yeah, I found that interesting. I kind of was like, finally, somebody else, like, I didn't really bring it up again, after I wrote it, just because, like, I figured, well, maybe people aren't interested in it, and I said everything I needed to say in it. And so it kind of made me feel vindicated that somebody else decided it was big enough to write about and point out. And this person is much bigger than me, obviously. They, have a huge following. So, I was glad to see that, because no matter where it's learned from, I think people need to know what this guy is like. So those are the Nancy Guthrie updates as of right now. Of course, like, I'm staying on the case, just because I'm also looking to other cases. It definitely doesn't mean that I'm, abandoning this one. And I promise to bring you guys updates as soon as I get them. And I will talk to you guys later. Bye.